Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Executive Director of the Radio Television Digital News Association, Mike Cavender.
Good evening. This is a great crowd tonight. One of the largest we've ever had, so thanks for being here tonight. I think you're going to have a great evening. I'm very pleased to welcome you all to the 44th Annual RTDNA Gala, the Edward R. Murrow Awards Dinner and Program. You know, since 1971, in what's become one of the largest and most prestigious journalism competitions in the country, we honor the very best in broadcast and now digital news gathering and production. It's fitting, you know, that the awards themselves honor someone who exemplified the very highest standards of quality in our industry. That, of course, Edward R. Murrow. This year's competition was another record breaker. We had more than 4,000 entries from TV, radio, and digital. They were judged first throughout our 14 regions at RTDNA. 600 of them were awarded regional honors as a result, and they moved on to the national competition. And it's those national winners, nearly 100 of them, that we'll honor tonight. We'll also honor the winners of this year's RTDNA Unity Awards for Diversity, as well as the winner of the Gannett Foundation's Al Newharth Award for Investigative Journalism. We have a great slate of presenters tonight to help us do all of that. And we also want to let you know, in case you want to let anyone back home know, we are live streaming the awards ceremony at rtdna.org. And the entire presentation will be archived and available afterwards on our website as well. And you may have also seen a few student volunteers working tonight with us, gathering some interviews and candid video for the evening's activities. That will all be on our website and social media as well. As we begin this evening, let's take a moment to look back at the life and the career of the man whose work we celebrate tonight, Edward R. Murrow. To do that, please join me in giving a very warm welcome to CBS News Chief Washington Correspondent and host of Face the Nation, Bob Schieffer.
Good evening, everyone. Edward R. Murrow set the standard for broadcast journalism in the early days of our business. There were his unforgettable radio reports during World War II. He basically invented radio news. His decision to tackle Senator Joseph McCarthy's attacks on Americans during the communist scares of the 50s, and documentaries that tore into America's conscience, like Harvest of Shame. Work like this, which was largely done at CBS News, is what made Edward R. Murrow a true icon in our profession. Here is a look back.
This is Edward Murrow speaking from Vienna. We're planning to bring you an eyewitness account of Herr Hitler's entry into Vienna sometime tomorrow. We return you now to America.
Hello, I'm Charles Kirol, and this was Edward R. Murrow. It all began with this very microphone in a studio of the British Broadcasting Corporation in London. This is London, he always began.
This is London, being bombed again. The sound of gunfire has been rolling down these crooked streets like thunder. Half an hour ago, I could read street signs in the flash of anti-aircraft batteries. Little patches of sparks on the pavements marked the point where shrapnel fell. And I'm not searching for adjectives to make this sound dramatic, just telling you what I've seen.
This is London. There are no
words to describe the thing that is happening. The courage of the people, the flash and roar of the guns rolling down the streets, the stench of the air raid shelters.
Edward R. Murrow in See It Now.
We are, as newcomers to this medium, rather impressed by the whole thing. Impressed, for example, that I can turn to Don Hewitt here and say, Don, will you push a button and bring in the Atlantic Coast? Hello, New York. May we have the Brooklyn Bridge, please?
Coming right up, Mr. Murrow. There she is.
Brooklyn Bridge. Thank you very much, Eddie Scott. Now, on monitor 2, San Francisco, could you use what you call, I think, a zoom-R lens and close in on the bridge a little?
Roger.
This is an old team trying to learn a new trade. When we started this series of programs, we had to decide where to do it from. We decided to do it right here from the studio. My purpose will be not to get in your light any more than I can, to lean over the cameraman's shoulder occasionally and say a word which may help to illuminate or explain what is happening.
Now, speaking to you, not from the control room of Studio 41, but from the Korean front, is Edward R. Murrow.
This is Korea. This is the front. Just there, no man's land begins. And on the ridges over there, the enemy positions can be clearly seen. In the course of the next hour, we shall try to show you around Korea a bit. Tonight, See It Now devotes its entire half hour to a report on Senator Joseph R. McCarthy. He has traveled far, interviewed many, terrorized some, accused civilian and military leaders of a great conspiracy to turn over the country to communism.
The question is, did the Civil Liberties Union supply you with an attorney?
They did supply an attorney.
The answer is yes.
The answer is yes.
You know, the Civil Liberties Union has been listed as a front for and doing the work of the Communist Party.
I resent the tone of this inquiry very much, Mr. Chairman. I resent it not only because it is my neck, my public neck, that you are very skillfully trying to wring.
We must not confuse dissent with disloyalty. We must remember always that accusation is not proof, and that conviction depends upon evidence and due process of law. This is no time for men who oppose Senator McCarthy's methods to keep silent, or for those who approve. The actions of the junior senator from Wisconsin have caused alarm and dismay amongst our allies abroad, and given considerable comfort to our enemies. And whose fault is that? Not really his. He didn't create this situation of fear, he merely exploited it, and rather successfully. Cassius was right. The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves.
Harvest of Shame was one of Murrow's last broadcasts. It epitomized everything he stood for.
Now, Edward R. Murrow. This is CBS Reports. Harvest of Shame. It has to do with the men, women, and children who harvest the crops in this country of ours, the best-fed nation on earth. These are the forgotten people, the underprotected, the undereducated, the underclothed, the underfed.
This instrument can teach, it can illuminate, yes, and even it can inspire. But it can do so only to the extent that humans are determined to use it to those ends. Otherwise, it's nothing but wires and lights in a box.
Good night, and good luck.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the chair of RTDNA, news director and station manager of WGCU-FM, Amy Tardif.
Welcome to the 44th Annual RTDNA Edward R. Murrow Awards Celebration. It's a tremendous honor to present these awards, recognizing the best in electronic or digital journalism. Out of an all-time record of more than 4,000 submissions this year, tonight we honor 98 National Murrow winners and 7 RTDNA Unity winners from 59 news organizations. This year proved to be one of the most competitive Edward R. Murrow Awards seasons in RTDNA history. For the first time, possibly ever, one entry won 2 national awards. This year will be the first time in 10 years a network won for both network radio overall excellence and network TV overall excellence. As we listen to and watch excerpts of some of the winning entries, I encourage you to experience them in full at rtdna.org. There you can also watch interviews with the producers to learn the stories behind the stories. If you're not among the more than 1,000 RTDNA members around the world, more than we've had in the last 4 years, please join us. Your presence tonight and your membership help support a number of efforts, including advocacy to uphold the First Amendment, training and education, answers to your ethics and access concerns, and scholarships for student journalists. For the first time, beginning next year, students will be invited to enter the Edward R. Murrow Awards in 3 categories. RTDNA will offer Murrow Awards for overall excellence in audio, video, and digital journalism to student entrants starting in 2015. On behalf of the RTDNA Board of Directors and our dedicated staff, thank you for being here and for your support of RTDNA. Now, let's meet tonight's National Edward R. Murrow Award recipients. Our first awards category this evening is for excellence in writing. We begin with KNAU, Arizona Public Radio. Flagstaff, Arizona is 3rd in the world for volunteerism in Haiti following the devastating earthquake. This series explores a true love story between a little mountain town and the most impoverished country in the Western Hemisphere.
Haiti has 4 ICU beds for the whole country. You'll see them today during our hospital.
We're on our way in a dusty truck to the Bernard Muse Hospital in the capital city. For months after the earthquake, it was its own epicenter of chaos, overrun with patients who had devastating injuries and infections. Frequent power outages fried X-ray and sterilizing machines in seconds because they weren't surge protected. Durham says many lives could have been saved had the hospital been better equipped and the staff better trained in trauma.
Accepting the award for KNAU in Flagstaff, Arizona is Managing Editor, Executive Producer, Jillian Ferris. WSBT believes that people are the story, and this entry demonstrates just how important the human element is in TV news writing.
At the Triway in Plymouth, the air conditioning is a light breeze. And if you want your seat to recline, well, just lay back on that air mattress.
This is reliving my childhood. And getting to show my kids something that I did when I was a kid.
Well, this projector was built back in the 1950s.
And it'll likely run for another half-century. But there may not be anything to show.
By the end of this year, 35mm film will no longer exist. So it's not only the drive-ins, it's your small-town theaters.
Accepting the award for WSBT TV in Mishawaka, Indiana is multimedia journalist Ted Land. This report from Georgia Public Radio reveals what really happened when an unarmed black man was killed at the hands of a white police officer in front of a busy grocery store in Macon.
Surely I had chatted with Junebug. A big guy with a history of mental illness, bench time in front of the Kroger was on his daily to-do list. On bad days, his panhandling could get pushy, as the police record now shows. But a year ago, we didn't know any of that. We only knew that a white police officer had shot and killed an unarmed black man in front of a busy grocery store at Christmas time. Here's what police spokesperson Jamie Gaudet told reporters in the Kroger parking lot.
What we know is that a Precinct 3 patrol officer attempted to serve a warrant. A struggle ensued, shots were fired, and we're investigating.
Except then we got a press release saying, actually, there was no warrant. After that, MPD went into informational lockdown.
Accepting for Georgia Public Broadcasting in Atlanta is senior anchor correspondent Ricky Bevington. WXIA WATL TV's Jay Watson brings stories to life in which the actions of one change the lives of many. Here, a musician forms a choir made up of homeless men.
At the corner of Central and ML King, they wait for the next meal.
Come today to get some hot coffee.
I see skies of blue.
Donald Noonan wanted to give Atlanta's homeless something worth waiting for.
So I decided to set up a choir. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere.
The same men so many shrink and turn away from on the streets are now the center, the sound of Christmas.
And it sounds cliche. You know, you see people on TV all the time saying, oh, it's so inspiring, and then you're like, it's not genuine. This is genuine. These guys blow my socks off.
Accepting the award for WXIA WATL TV in Atlanta is reporter Jay Watson. CBS News chief correspondent, Washington correspondent Bob Schieffer has been covering D.C. politics for 45 years, so he has some unique insight into congressional gridlock and how things might one day be different.
I had a dream the other night. The ghost of Congress' future took me on a flying tour of Capitol Hill. I could not believe what I saw down there. Both houses of Congress were filled with members. There were lively, spirited, informed debates going on. I'm used to seeing members speak to an empty chamber. What's going on? I said. Oh, the ghost said, the people threw out the whole bunch you knew after one of those shut down the government debacles, and the people demanded new rules. We pay Congress by the hour now, like most of the other government employees, and they don't get paid anymore unless they're legislating.
Accepting is CBS News chief Washington correspondent Bob Schieffer. The CBS Evening News with Scott Pelley goes on the road to meet a World War II veteran who served at Normandy and says that was nothing compared to the greatest battle of his life.
This is me when
89-year-old Ed Bray served in World War II. He was at Normandy on D-Day, has 2 Purple Hearts and more than a dozen other medals. But to this day, he still can't even read what they're for. Not because it's too painful.
Victory.
But because he simply can't read.
A friend suggested he see a professor of reading education here at Oklahoma's Northeastern State University.
And though they're all just third-grade level biographies,
Good job.
each one has the same dramatic ending.
Did you ever think you'd read that?
Get in there and learn, baby. Now. Because you ain't going to learn in that pine box.
Accepting for CBS News is correspondent Steve Hartman. Please welcome back CBS News Chief Washington Correspondent and host of Face the Nation, Bob Schieffer.
And the first thing I want to do is thank Harvey Nagler. I didn't know that he had entered that little essay in this contest, and he called me and said, "Hey, you won." Thank you, Harvey. Harvey always looks out for the troops, and that's why we love him so much. Our winners in the investigative reporting category know how to dig for a story and how to get answers to the toughest questions. An investigation by the Kentucky Center for Investigative Reporting found that failures throughout Indiana's criminal justice system allowed a veteran criminal to continue his predatory habits with little intervention. Watch.
If they want to take my life for life, that's fine.
The sheriff's office scene, the orange jumpsuit and the handcuffs, was all too familiar for Hooten. At the time of Willenborg's murder, he had amassed 6 prior felony convictions in 3 states for crimes including another rape, a stabbing, a prison escape, and 2 other assaults on women. But despite his violent past, Indiana authorities made decisions in 3 separate cases that allowed Hooten to remain free until he killed Willenborg.
WFPL could not be with us here this evening, so we will accept the award tonight on their behalf. WVIR-TV uncovered what some would call a hospital horror. A family already mourning a young father killed in a farming accident was sent home with a bag of remains instead of personal belongings.
It wasn't until they traveled hours home sitting on that very bag that they discovered what was supposed to be a wallet and clothing was actually Bradley's arm and fingers.
It got wrapped up around this.
The 27-year-old lifelong farmer who his family says never met a stranger got wrapped by his sweatshirt string around this power takeoff.
He was just under here. It just tore the arm off.
When he went out to get the wallet, he reached in and got hold of Bradley's arm. That's about where he lost it.
All right, accepting the award for WVIR-TV in Charlottesville, Virginia, News Director David Foke. WGBH's Philip Martin traveled to Boston, from Boston to New York to East Asia to explore the modern slave trade in human trafficking.
I'm riding with Jim as we pass a row of massage parlors in Queens. He's looking for his wife. That's right, his wife, who migrated from Thailand 8 years ago. Today, she works as a prostitute, a life he thought she had left behind. Her story is yet another path of the underground trade that lands in New York. This route starts in Thailand, where she was a bar girl forced into a life of prostitution, allegedly to pay off a family debt to a criminal gang.
And accepting for WGBH in Boston, senior investigative reporter Philip Martin. Philip. WCPO's investigation exposed a broken and a dangerous 9/11 system in Cincinnati. Calling for help there had become a game of chance.
I want you to pump the chest hard and fast, at least twice per second, and at least 2 inches deep. Got it?
That's what it sounds like when the person who answers 911 is medically trained. This is what it sounds like when they're not.
No one gave us any instructions. They just hung up.
Please hurry. Ma'am, I'm not the one that's coming. EMS is coming, okay? Yes. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the call.
Is everyone who answers 911 in the city of Cincinnati medically trained? No answer.
Accepting for WCPO TV in Cincinnati is the Chief Investigator, Brendan Keefe. Brendan. With the tragic persistence of grain bin entrapments, NPR exposed serious weaknesses in worker safety laws and enforcement.
Alex Pocket screamed he didn't want to die.
One last chunk of corn came flowing down and went around his face, and I still had one arm free, and I tried to sweep it away from his face as much as I could. And eventually there was just too much, and after a little bit his hand was sticking up above the grain and I could just see his scalp and his hand stopped moving.
Will was trapped for 6 hours before he was finally freed. It took another 6 hours to find Wyatt's body in the corn.
Accepting the award for NPR is correspondent Howard Burkus. This 60 Minutes investigation exposed a massive failure in drug safety that caused 48 deaths and left 720 patients with a deadly fungus.
There is no cure in sight for me.
Willard Mazur's morphine is to kill the pain from the fungal infection. This is the fungus. It is a sample that has been grown from the spinal fluid of a patient. The fungus is a form of mold that attacks bone and nerves. The patients who had it injected in the spine have an infection called meningitis, which can also reach the brain. The steroid methylprednisolone acetate made by New England Compounding Center, known as NECC, came from this industrial park near Boston, which houses the pharmacy and an outfit that recycles construction debris.
In accepting this award, CBS News producer Michael Ray. Homeowners paying special property taxes to build a school in their neighborhood learn there is no room in the school for their kids. An iNewsSource investigation revealed the extra taxes were used as a virtual ATM by the school district.
It took Mike Smith and me about 3 minutes to walk to the elementary school that his daughter can't get into. I showed him some of the invoices we were able to trace to the taxes collected in his neighborhood.
A coffee shop sign?
Including $6,500 for a cafe sign in the administration building.
That's appalling.
Especially, Smith says, because the school district made a decision not to spend $100,000 on a relocatable classroom at Willow Grove, a classroom that could have made room for his daughter.
Accepting this award is iNewsSource Executive Director Lori Hearn. That all took place in San Diego County, by the way. Well, Boston's cabbies can be a surly lot, but consider what they sometimes endure. A Globe investigation found a taxi trade where fleet owners got rich, drivers were frequently fleeced, and the city did little about it.
In the belly of Boston's biggest taxi garage, cabbies shuffle toward a scratched and grimy dispatcher's window. Many drivers, hoping to get a cab for a 12-hour shift, say they slip the dispatcher's bribes. The largely immigrant workforce of drivers experiences staggering exploitation at the hands of cab owners.
They deal with the driver like a trash.
Typical 12-hour shift fees can be around $120, including gas.
I start negative. You figure you start negative 120, and you take in 100 and 120, 110, and then you end up paying $10 to drive a cab all night.
Accepting the award for the Boston Globe, video journalist Scott LaPierre. The next category of the evening is our first overall Excellence Award. WDEL is proud to serve Delaware with breaking news, in-depth reporting, and feature stories highlighting this unique community. WDEL reporters capture the flavor of their town, $365 a year, online and on the air.
WDEL News is at the scene. WDEL's Melanie Armstrong joining us live, and she ran into a person that literally came face to face with the shooter.
Oh my God, turn to me with a gun. I was shell shocked. And then he turned around and he just starts.
With a dusting of snow remaining on the beach from Saturday night, 3,500 so-called polar bears braved a windy 30-degree day to raise over $650,000 for Special Olympics Delaware. One plungerer ran past me, seemed to be in shock.
Cold, man!
Kevin Lilly and longtime friends Bill Vernon, Paul McCorkle, and Andy Mitchell make up the Neanderthal Nincompoops and will compete against 29 teams Saturday in the first ever National Red Bull Flugtag Day.
6 or 7 years ago, I saw it on TV for the first time, and I said to a friend of mine, I would love to do that.
It took Kevin 6 months to build their red, black, and silver entry, the terrifying pterodactyl.
Accepting the award for WDEL of Wilmington, the Director of News and Programming, Chris Carl. Well, congratulations to all of our winners thus far, and here's some good news. We're going to take a break for dinner, and we'll be back with more awards after that. Enjoy it.
I hope you all enjoyed that delicious meal because it should fortify us for all of the awards that are yet to come. It is now my pleasure to introduce Rob Menney, President and GM for WTLV WJXX in Jacksonville, Florida, and Senior Vice President of Gannett Broadcasting, who will announce RTDNA's Gannett Foundation Al Newharth Award for Investigative Journalism.
Thank you very much, Amy. Named after the late Al Newharth, who was the founder of USA Today, this award recognizes groundbreaking work by a journalist or a staff that creatively used digital tools in the role of community watchdog journalism. Special consideration is given to applicants who help a community understand and address important issues. The winner of this award also receives $5,000. We are pleased to bestow this year's Gannett Foundation Al Newhart Award to CBS News 60 Minutes for their investigation, Lethal Medicine. Accepting the award on behalf of CBS is producer Oriana Zill.
It is now my honor to present the RTDNA Unity Awards to news organizations that have excelled in covering diversity in their communities. This year, there are 7 awards.
The game wasn't just reacting to a player with height and speed and power. It was reacting to a black woman with height, speed, and power who was not going to defer to the cultural mores of the time because that culture did not accept them.
I'm tall and black, and everything's different about me. Just face the facts.
Now I'm packing like 60 to 70 in 1 week.
That's Merlina Manuel from Micronesia. She talks about working in freezing temperatures, quickly packing chicken in foam trays.
We do what we have to do.
This work could intensify if regulators allow plants to speed up the processing line. Officials argue new rules could help contain bacteria. It would also save companies like Tyson money. Advocates worry that workers' injuries, already notorious, will increase.
Over the next 3 years, George and Frank, Patty's grandfather and father, would take more than 2,000 photos of life inside Heart Mountain. 2,000 moments captured behind barbed wire that gives us a much better understanding of what life was like. A total of 14,000 people were held at Heart Mountain, 10,000 at any given time. All of them ripped from their homes, their jobs, their schools, forced to leave behind everything they owned. They were homesick, trying to exist in this environment the best they could.
So, Benita, why are you moving?
Because I want to expand my horizons.
Expand her horizons?
I need to be in a place where more African Americans are ascending to positions and doing things that's more positive, and you find a lot of them, not just a couple of them.
Benita is my 3rd black friend this year who says Seattle just isn't enough. Not enough black people, black men, she's single, or opportunities.
A federal jury in Detroit today convicted 2 Filipino nurses of poisoning patients at a veterans hospital in Ann Arbor, Michigan 2 years ago.
They had already focused on their 2 primary suspects and were going about the business of building the case for the federal prosecutors.
It was very obvious, 2 Filipino nurses, the black intern. But I kind of felt, well, I know I didn't do it, and I'm pretty sure they didn't either. But again, naive to think that, eventually somebody's going to figure it out and the truth will prevail. Well, that didn't happen in this particular case.
Police arrested more than 450 Negro school children who played hooky to parade and picket and pray.
It was a protest against racial segregation in Birmingham. If you ever saw the black and white film footage of Negro protesters being met with fire hoses and police dogs, that's it.
Police loaded some of the school children onto school buses, arresting, among others, a 6-year-old girl. The Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth says the demonstrations will continue until we run out of children.
We had never tried this kind of march before. This was the first interracial, international, nationwide demonstration that we tried. And I was a little worried that morning. We said, gee whiz, where is everybody? But by 11 o'clock, the place was jumping.
March started about noon, and Martin didn't get up until after 6 o'clock to speak. But it was obvious that everybody was waiting there to hear him.
And Mary took my hand and she said, Peter, we're witnessing history being made.
Please welcome all of our RTDNA Unity Award winners to the stage. The Executive Vice President of Comcast Corporation, David Cohen. Independent producer for KUOW Public Radio in Seattle, Tanya Mosley. Immigration editor for PRI's The World, Monica Campbell. Evening anchor for KABC TV in Glendale, California, David Ono. Representing ESPN Films is producer Howard Barish. News director of Alabama Public Radio in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Pat Duggins. And WKAR-TV, who could not be with us this evening. Let's congratulate all of the winners of the RTDNA Unity Awards. And now please give a warm welcome to our next presenter, CBS News correspondent, Steve Hartman.
Thank you. First up is excellence in continuing coverage. KNAU Public Radio brings us this poignant story of an honor guard who stood watch as 19 firefighters from the Granite Mountain Firefighters.
It's called Honor Watch, and it began here the night that 19 of the 20 Granite Mountain hotshot crew members died. Prescott firefighters draped each body with an American flag and stayed with them on the hill all through the night until they were taken to the medical examiner's office in Phoenix. And even then, Eric Caputo says, no one left their side.
The reason we do it is so that they are never alone.
As the procession of white hearses drove the 100 miles from Phoenix back to Prescott at the beginning of this week, the honor guard lined the street, holding flags in the stifling desert heat.
Accepting the award for KNAU in Flagstaff, Arizona, is managing editor and executive producer Jillian Ferris. I could listen to that music all night. It's like we're having a news rave or something here. Once the WVUE team began digging into corruption by the St. Tammany Parish Coroner, an unprecedented recall effort began to spring up within weeks. The coroner had a lucrative contract canceled, and the FBI opened their own investigation.
The St. Tammany coroner does 11 times fewer autopsies than New Orleans, but makes double the salary.
You think about what he made in 2000, and we're up to 2012, and say 12 years. We've increased it by how much? 400%. Oh, that's the kind of job I have.
Well, when you glass of wine there, glass of wine, a lot of wine there. Just meals with no explanation. $27 mint julep, Jim Beam specials. I mean, I can keep going, honestly.
And we will. That just begins to tell the story of how one public official, one public office spends your money.
Accepting the award for WVUE TV in New Orleans is anchor and chief investigative reporter Lee Zurich. As the city of Boston scrambled for answers amidst the chaos, the WBZ team took the responsibility of keeping the public safe and informed by providing extensive marathon bombing coverage that the city could turn to. Here's that report.
Spectators covered in blood were immediately taken to the medical tent set up to help runners at the finish line. In the video that shows smoke emanating from the front of the store, dozens of volunteers, many with wheelchairs and stretchers, rushing to the scene, bringing people immediately to the medical tent.
This amount of carnage in the civilian population is something we expect in war.
We know that these were homemade bombs, 2 of them, and at least one was contained in a pressure cooker. They were packed with black powder, nails, and ball bearings, all designed to inflict massive harm and injury.
Police say one of the suspects is dead after a shootout. There is a massive search underway this hour in Watertown for the other.
Accepting the award for WBZ in Boston is anchor Diane Stern. UWM Panther Vision's investigation into school safety revealed holes in the school's preparedness, their preparedness for an active shooter.
UWM has never held an active shooter drill. Virginia Tech, April 16, 2007. 33 killed, 17 injured. Northern Illinois University, Valentine's Day, 2008. 6 killed. California's Oikos University, April 2nd, 2012. 7 killed. Those things don't happen here, right?
Many students aren't aware of the training available.
Has anyone in this room seen the active training video? If you have, keep your hand in the air.
According to Associate Vice Chancellor Jeffrey Hurtado, the university doesn't require training because they don't want to scare people.
Accepting the award for Panther Vision in Milwaukee is instructor and news director Mark Zimbrowski.
Wow. So this is what Cloud 9 looks like. Pretty cool place. Our journey here started with an investigative report and ended with results. In between was some diligent reporting, a commitment to outstanding journalism, and fortitude as a newsroom. And it all came from a remarkable group of students who walked into my classroom having never done a television story before in their lives. They walked out carrying high the torch of the Fourth Estate. Panther Vision is a product of my television news reporting class and newscast producing classes at UW-Milwaukee. TV production students at Milwaukee Area Technical College handle all our studio duties. I am so incredibly proud of these kids. Their commitment to holding the powerful accountable, to giving voice to the voiceless, and to righting wrongs is simply inspiring. Thanks to some generous donors from across the country, including the Wisconsin Broadcasters Association, the Milwaukee Press Club, and the RTDNA, 9 of our students are here tonight, and it is my honor to introduce them to you. They're seated at the back with the person I admire the most in the world, my wife, Jill. Please stand to be recognized. Chris Verheyen, now a newscast producer at WEAU-TV in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Tyler Berg, now a reporter at KDIK-TV in Idaho Falls. Callie LeCount, now an associate producer at WISN Television in Milwaukee and looking for her first reporting job, hint, hint. Aaron Nodlow, now an account executive at ARIA Marketing in Boston. Samantha Nash, now a graduate student at UWM and freelance journalist. Soraya Pedersen, graduating in December and then headed to law school. Robert Wyke, now a freelance writer and looking for his first newscast producing job, hint, hint again. Will Bott, we have him for another year as an undergraduate student. And one of our most loyal alums, Eric Miller, is shooting video for us tonight. He produced all the animated graphics for our coverage. Guys, I am so proud of you. The industry is proud of you. Dare I say that I think Edward R. Murrow would be proud of you. The future of broadcast journalism is in very good hands. Thank you.
CBS Radio News was on the air immediately after the twin explosions at the Boston Marathon. With the help of WBZ TV and radio, they immediately launched into continuous coverage of every angle of this fast-changing story.
It is an awful scene in Boston. 2 explosions just over an hour ago, just before the finish line of the Boston Marathon on Boylston Street. The explosions were fairly closely spaced. WBZ TV reporter Jonathan Elias.
People were on the ground screaming and crying for help, and others just looked absolutely dazed, like they had no idea what had just happened to them.
And it gets worse.
All across the sidewalk, people were strewn. They were on top of each other. They've been, some of them had, there's really no way of putting this nicely, but you can see clearly that body parts had been blown apart.
Accepting for CBS Radio News is CBS News correspondent Dan Raviv. A massive EF5 twister roared toward Moore, Oklahoma. ABC News positioned a team well in advance of the storm, and the hours and weeks that followed provided viewers with the whole incredible picture.
As we come on the air, we are in the middle of a breaking story, a massive tornado descending like a wrecking ball in the heartland. Houses ground to splinters, fires erupting. And what you're looking at right there, hours ago, was the school gymnasium. And we watched it all live on television. A funnel cloud at first, a thin line, and then it touched the ground and exploded, making a direct hit on Moore, Oklahoma, a town of 55,000 people.
I've covered a lot of tornadoes over the years, and I have never, ever seen anything like this.
Accepting for ABC News is ABC News world anchor David Muir. The Boston Globe captured the tension-packed week in the city and spent months with one of the victims following her through the bombings and through her rehabilitation.
Celeste Corcoran's daughter, Sydney, collapsed to the sidewalk of Boylston Street after being struck by a piece of shrapnel from the first bomb near the finish line of the Boston Marathon.
I was standing to the right of her, so I'm so glad that it was me. And in some way, my body shielded her.
Sydney recuperated enough to be able to go home from Spalding. She said her emotional goodbyes to her mom, who she had spent the last 3 weeks with. For Celeste, the biggest challenge was before her, to be able to walk again.
Failure can't be an option. You know, I need to be active like I was.
Accepting for the Boston Globe is reporter David Filippov. Our next category is the outstanding and creative use of sound and video. To many people, the sound of the local frogs or peepers is the sound of spring. WADT FM brings us their call of love.
Love is in the air, and in the woods, and in the vernal pools.
Love is in the air, everywhere I look around.
It's the sound of the peepers, small frogs that are part of the local landscape.
The frog that has the lowest pitch voice is usually the one that starts the vocal battle.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
But that's not the end-all and be-all of who gets lucky, so to speak.
Once the females come over and visit, they tend to pick the largest frog, regardless of what their voice sounds like.
And I thought the music couldn't get any better, but accepting the award for WADT FM in Marshfield, Massachusetts is managing editor Christine James. After Tico Sanchez's exhausting two-day swim from Cuba to freedom in America, he's finally living the American dream. This story from WTVR TV.
Plunging into the unknown wearing nothing but shorts. There's no turning back.
I was concentrating on the idea to get in the water, and once I'm in the water, I knew I was free. How are you, sir?
Lunchtime at 12th and Marshall.
With everything on it, correct?
Yes, sir. Can be a dizzying deluge of orders. Tico serves his loyal customers.
Wow, this is so good.
With a smile.
Ladies.
You may think after 17 years, Tico would tire of his daily dance.
Everything on it?
But he couldn't picture himself anywhere else.
Accepting the award for WTVR is photojournalist Jesse Burkett. $4,000 entries this year and only 3,999 winners, so the night's almost over. Love is in the air in California at the northern beaches when the northern elephant seals arrive by the thousands for breeding season. The males sound more like a chorus of motorcycles, I understand, but it's a far cry from Barry White, as you'll see.
Valentine's Day is around the corner, and it's the season of love songs. A little Barry White, maybe? Love is also in the air down the coast, but it sounds something like this. That is a male northern elephant seal. It's the peak of their mating season right now on California's beaches. KQED science reporter Lauren Summer visited Año Nuevo State Reserve, where researchers are learning how these sounds help the males score with the ladies.
KQED could not be here with us. They're all out making love right now. So I'll be accepting the award on their behalf. Don't know why I did that. This next excerpt is just one example of King TV's photojournalistic skills, as Scott Jensen crafts an emotionally charged feature story.
Their stories are always about one thing. Courageous kids.
We call her our hero.
I have nothing to do.
The children are inserted into a fun storyline make-believe.
It's one of those things where we don't want to remind them constantly that, hey, you know, you have cancer, you have a terminal illness.
And they create this amazing story that stars your child.
What a gift of love to the pepperoncini-loving little girl whose favorite story in the world now is her own.
Accepting for King TV in Seattle is Chief Photojournalist Scott Jensen. To commemorate the 50th anniversary of President Kennedy's assassination, the South Dallas Concert Choir performed Lord, Keep the City, based on the last speech that Kennedy prepared but never delivered. This from New York Public Radio.
We ask, therefore, that we be worthy of our power and responsibility, that we may exercise our strength with wisdom and restraint.
This speech sounded so much like him because it was saying we want peace on earth, goodwill toward men, but before we can achieve any of these things, we've got to straighten up ourselves.
Accepting the award for WNYC and Public Radio International is executive producer Rupert Gardner. NBC News Dateline tells the story of 3 climbers and their attempts to conquer Mount Everest. From video shot by the climbers themselves, stunning images illustrate the beauty and dangers of trying to reach the roof of the world.
The mountain is mysterious, deadly, irresistible.
It's the closest thing you can get to being in outer space.
It dares climbers to risk everything for the glory of standing at the highest point on Earth. Over the years, hundreds of them haven't made it back.
The thing about dying on Everest is that it's not like a painful, gruesome death. It's just about giving up and just sort of floating off.
Yet that doesn't stop the throngs from coming every spring.
It looks like people lining up to go to a rock concert, except they're all climbing at 25,000 feet, inches away from death.
That's great. Accepting for NBC News is Dateline NBC anchor and weekend NBC Nightly News anchor, and Today Show anchor as well, Lester Holt. The Bay Area News Group presented audiences with magical and surreal images of the internationally acclaimed Circus Vargas troupe when they brought their colorful acrobatic show to town. Accepting the award for the Bay Area News Group is staff photojournalist Dai Sogano. And now for the second Overall Excellence Award. WBRIR is committed to serving the greater good of the community by providing a wide range of local content across all media platforms. Their mission is to be good citizens and to be fair and honest. In other words, to do what comes straight from the heart.
Interstate 40 shut down. Church bus blew a tire and crossed the center median.
And we had all had such a wonderful time in Gatlinburg.
8 people lost their lives.
The most destructive residential wildfire in Tennessee history.
I didn't think a judge could make me change my baby's name. Y'all wear the parks clothes.
You've got to be kidding here. Ripped off trucking companies on rebates.
I think I was just trusting, and I won't do that again. They owed us about $146,000.
Did you participate?
Yeah, absolutely not. I feel like I've been run over by a house.
This will be an icy mess.
Water droplets are freezing.
So we're seeing a nice rainbow effect.
J Street, named after J Street in Baltimore.
Relentless sun. The steamy steel seats.
Probably getting shade the fastest.
Music is a universal language.
Our society is strengthened when everyone can be together.
The news starts now.
Accepting for WBIR TV in Knoxville, Tennessee is News Director Christy Moreno.
Please welcome our next presenter, ABC News anchor of Good Morning America, Amy Robach.
For excellence in hard news journalism, our first award winner is WITF. A pile of dirt sparked controversy in central Pennsylvania. The dirt in question sits in a rail yard and covers about an acre of an old industrial site located in a floodplain.
This is a story about an influential businessman, a dysfunctional local government, a skeptical public, and a mysterious pile of dirt. The dirt is in a rail yard in the city of Sunbury in Northumberland County, an hour north of Harrisburg. It's surrounded by a tall barbed wire fence. 2 years ago, this rail yard became a shipping hub for natural gas drilling waste. Trucks rolled into town and loaded up rail cars with drill cuttings. That's the waste dirt and rock from drilling that can contain chemicals and naturally occurring radioactive materials.
Accepting the award for WITF in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania is State Impact Pennsylvania reporter Marie Cusick. After a young woman is pushed to her death in a New York City subway by a mentally ill man, her mother has become an advocate for change. The story from WGRZ TV.
What happened at just after 5 o'clock that afternoon would forever horribly scar 2 families and result in Kendra's Law, which allows courts to order outpatient treatment for the seriously mentally ill who have stopped taking their medication and have a history of violence.
And I'm walking behind her, and I just get this fit and walk back up to the wall from the platform. And I said, I had a psychotic attack. Please take me to the hospital. I killed the woman.
It's a person with a mental illness just looking at you and telling you what his mental illness is all about. It's sad.
Accepting the award for WGRZ TV in Buffalo, New York is reporter Scott Brown. Religious groups gather at the Raleigh Capitol for Moral Mondays, where they peacefully protest issues on the legislature's docket. This story from WFAE.
A couple of hours before protests at the Capitol,
Margaret Herring is ripping a sheet of cloth into strips in the foyer of Raleigh's Christian Faith Baptist Church.
These are going to be armbands for the people doing civil disobedience.
They march inside, chanting and singing, but orderly. The whole event is highly orchestrated with a procedure that both protesters and police follow pretty much to a T. Those who want to be arrested walk to the center of the State House. Those who want to support them crowd the balcony above.
Almighty God, bringing all those who've gone before us.
Then more speeches and chants echo through the marble hallways.
Accepting for WFAE in Charlotte, North Carolina is reporter Ben Bradford. In heartbreaking detail and dramatic images, Cara TV follows a mother who lost her daughter and husband and the driver who caused their deaths in a crash involving an unhitched trailer.
Oh, there's Daddy and Izzy.
Yeah. 3 years after the funerals, State Trooper Kelly McGraw still struggles with what he saw. Yeah. Jeremy Cox had taken his 2 children, Izzy and Leah, to the library. A beautiful Saturday, Memorial Day weekend. A trailer being towed by a pickup truck approached in the other lane, then broke free. This was tough. Hitched first through the windshield, the trailer tore through the driver's side of Jeremy's Honda CR-V. Jeremy was killed instantly.
Accepting for Cara TV in Minneapolis is reporter Boyd Hooper. Marketplace tells the story of a Chinese farming family who lost their 15-year-old son to cancer caused by chemical waste from a nearby factory.
The 300 million pound hill of chemical waste beside farmer Wu Shuliang's rice paddy began to take shape in the 1990s. It was yellow and green and it smelled terrible. The waste was from a factory next door, a byproduct from making chemicals used for tanning leather. Wu and his wife had 2 sons. They grew up bathing in the river that turned yellow when it rained. They breathed the dust that blew off of the hill on windy days. And the oldest son, Wu Wenyong, spent much of his childhood working the rice paddies in the hill's shadow. Wu Wenyong was in 8th grade when he was diagnosed with 2 types of cancer, leukemia and thymoma.
Accepting the award for American Public Media is China correspondent Rob Schmitz. Nightline went undercover in the Philippines, an infamous haven for sex trafficking. Hidden cameras rolled as an American bar owner bragged about selling underage girls for sex with foreign tourists.
Benjamin is a 49-year-old American suspected of having sex with underage girls and selling them for sex out of this bar called Crowbar. But as he drinks, Benjamin has no idea that at that very moment,
the first target is going to be in the Crowbar.
Filipino and American authorities are just a few miles away.
See you out there, good luck.
Plotting a raid that will bring his world crashing down.
How old are you?
14.
You're 14.
The Philippines has quietly emerged as a top destination for Americans, not just looking to have sex.
There's 16-year-olds in there, I guarantee.
But to sell sex as well.
Accepting for ABC News is correspondent Alex Marquardt. In order to set the record straight about his childhood and family, San Diego mayoral candidate Nathan Fletcher reveals to iNewsSource the abuse he suffered at the hands of his father.
He was abusive physically,
and mentally and verbally. I mean, without question, the lowest form of life on this planet is someone that would beat their wife or beat their child. And I don't understand it now, and I don't think I ever will. I remember being asked one time my least favorite class, and I said math, and someone asked why, and I didn't have the heart to explain because it was the last class of the day, and I just didn't want to go home.
Accepting the award for iNews Source is investigative reporter Joanne Ferrion. In Portland, Maine, a surge in heroin use is contributing to a rash of fatal overdoses. This story from the New York Times.
Heroin use is huge right now with drug users. It's really available and it's really inexpensive.
Yeah, I do. I'll get you right over here.
Heroin today is about $30 cheaper than it was about 5 years ago. So you can get very high on heroin much cheaper than you could get drunk on booze.
How many times have you overdosed?
Over 25. Well over 25.
And that's overdose, not just falling out. That's
DOA.
Accepting for the New York Times is senior video journalist Brent McDonald. He's very ready. Our third overall excellence award goes to WBEZ.
This proposal breaks Illinois state law, it breaks the rules by CPS, and it breaks my heart.
And there were disruptions. Erica Clark told board members she opposes every school closing.
Because as a parent, as a mother, every Chicago public school is my school.
It hit me when my friend texted me in New Jersey and says, you now have the right to marry whoever you want in Illinois.
Most heroin dealers are guys who, they kind of started out a little shady, but they done bought businesses. They walking around wearing shirts and ties, and you will never know that they got 500 grams of heroin stashed in somebody's house.
I talked with the guy who brought Dunkin' Donuts to Chicago. His name is Bob Rosenberg. In 1963, at age 25, he took the company over from his dad, Bill Rosenberg, right after he graduated from Harvard Business School. He's like the George W. Bush of donuts.
Accepting for WBEZ in Chicago is Community Bureau's editor Derek John. Way to hustle. And leading off our features category is WTVR-TV, a former Secret Service agent who witnessed President Kennedy's death in 1963, has been reliving the nightmare every November 22nd for half a century.
I never got to say anything to the children, but looking back, I wish I hadn't been able to talk to them about how sorry I was that it happened.
Following the assassination, President Kennedy's murder became a taboo subject in the Secret Service. A half century after President Kennedy's death, Wynn still replays the events from that day.
At times I wish I'd never been born.
Accepting the award for WTVR in Richmond, Virginia is reporter and anchor Greg McQuaid. North Country Public Radio spent nearly 2 years trying to understand America's 40-year drug war and the rise of mass incarceration, bringing new context to a complex and painful story.
In January of 1973, Rockefeller rolled out a no-holds-barred political campaign, pushing for mandatory prison sentences of 15 years to life, even for those caught with small amounts of marijuana, cocaine, or heroin.
I have one goal, one objective, and that is to stop the pushing of drugs and to protect the innocent victim.
The policy drew sharp criticism right away, but the idea of hitting drug dealers hard caught the mood of the country.
Unless you back this bill, New York State is doomed.
Accepting for North Country Public Radio in Canton, New York, is Adirondack Bureau Chief Brian Mann. Or not. Brian, this one's for you. We'll make sure you get it. And we'll give it back to you. Cara TV's Boyd Huppert brings us this inspiring story of a prison inmate who discovered a hidden talent. His paintings now bring comfort to grieving families.
For the first time ever, Michael started painting.
Every day I could, every single day.
We got this the first Christmas without Adam.
Michael's aunt, Mary Carter, lost her son Adam to leukemia 4 years into Michael's sentence.
Gosh, it was so dark. Yeah, I was lost.
She'd heard Michael had taken up painting in prison, but never expected a delivery like this.
He actually just captured everything about her that was so beautiful in that painting.
She too had lost her daughter McKenna to cancer, but that portrait from prison.
Every morning when I come downstairs, it's the first thing I see.
Accepting for Cara TV in Minneapolis is photojournalist Jonathan Malott. Middle school students from Heartland, Wisconsin talked to Holocaust survivors and World War II veterans. The students uncovered some remarkable stories unknown to even the vets' families. WTMJ reports.
World War II veterans are dying out so quickly, and actually Holocaust survivors too. Our solution was to interview and videotape World War II veterans and Holocaust survivors.
So they went out and met these veterans and videotaped them as they told their stories. Those interviews and experiences are now on DVD and are being distributed to schools and libraries across the area.
When you're a middle school and you're a teenager, usually you're like, oh, that's the old guy down the street, don't bother him. But wow, this guy was actually cool. Like, I want to be that guy.
I feel that with these videos that we've made, we will be able to remember their stories.
Accepting the award for WTMG in Milwaukee is the executive producer of news, Eric Bilstad. That's what they call a selfie under pressure. CBS Evening News had the first and only interview with a trooper from Sandy Hook, Connecticut, and the grief-stricken family he was assigned to shield. Scott Pelley revealed how this relationship helped pave the way from death back to life.
She just said, I know my daughter's in heaven. And that's when tears filled my eyes.
When you saw that picture
of the prettiest little girl anybody ever saw. What did you think?
How could this happen?
Eddie Van stayed by Jenny, helped get Matthew home, and used a photo to help identify Catherine so her parents didn't have to. He kept reporters away, became a big brother to Freddie, and drove Jenny to pick out Catherine's last dress.
It's the kindness in him that goes far beyond what anybody could ever expect.
Accepting for CBS News is producer Amy Burkholder. When tragedy strikes a school or another location, what should be done with that building afterward? Destroy it, make it a living memorial, or pretend like nothing happened? Studio 360 WNYC PRI explores.
She liked her neighbor across the hall, a quiet, polite guy named Jeff.
We would have a beer together and he'd come to my house.
This was the police.
They had asked me, did I look in any of these pots? And I had said, well, he was cooking something in these pots. What are you guys doing? And they said, these are body parts.
Jeff's last name was Dahmer. What do you do with a building after it's linked to a horrific tragedy or pure evil? I mean, you have a few options. You could make it vanish. You could turn it into a living memorial. Or you could pretend like nothing happened.
Accepting the award for Studio 360 is associate producer Eric Malinsky. In a joint effort between the Washington Post's weekly magazine and video department comes this story of a unique romance on the eve of Valentine's Day.
Living together is a party that doesn't stop.
Her love, humor, and joy is what I come home to every day.
When I'm working, I'm always thinking of him. I even give him a shout out, usually to check on him and to say I'm coming home. We're just like any other person.
I did dream of getting married since I was a teenager.
One day, William took me to On the Border for lunch and asked me for my hand. I said yes.
Accepting for the Washington Post is video journalist Brad Horn. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to our next presenter, the anchor of Dateline NBC and weekend anchor of Nightly News and the Today Show, Lester Holt.
She left out her favorite former co-anchor in that introduction. I'm sure she meant to say that. Great to see Amy. I'm pleased to present the 4th Overall Excellence Award. ABC News Radio illustrated excellent news gathering in breaking situations with real depth and vibrancy. In addition, their creative feature work and digital effort was unparalleled. Take a look.
Something just blew up.
There was an explosion just probably a little bit in front of the finish line on the right-hand side of the sidewalk. Maybe 20 seconds later, there was another one down about half a block on the same side.
There were people standing on the overpass watching the tornado, not taking cover. We left. They were still standing there, and I do not believe they survived.
I've been kidnapped and I've been missing for 10 years, and I'm here. I'm free now.
Amanda Berry made this panicked call to 911 just after a neighbor noticed her kicking at a locked front door.
And she just going nuts on the door.
It's the day 1.2 billion Catholics have been waiting for. The gathering or conclave to elect a new pope has arrived at the Vatican.
Accepting the award is the Vice President of ABC News Radio, Steve Jones. Now on to our documentaries category. KETV documents a Nebraska medical team's mission to South Sudan. With financial help from citizens of Omaha, they bring much-needed care to the people of the war-torn country.
Dr. Joseph Dumba is home. He brings friends, doctors, nurses, pharmacists, and prayer leaders. It's a medical mission trip to his homeland, South Sudan, Africa, a place where there's no access to quality medical care for 500,000 people. They set up in schoolrooms, offering free medical clinics for villagers. Nurses from Omaha are the gatekeepers.
Just one person.
The crowds are massive.
She has pain.
There's more than the science of medicine going on here.
The touch, and I think the art of medicine and touching and talking, and I think there's truly healing in that.
Accepting the award for KETV in Omaha, Nebraska is producer, writer, host Julie Cornell. HIV survivors led listeners on an emotional journey through their day-to-day lives, reflecting on the loneliness, the pain, and the hope they now have for a future that once seemed inconceivable. This is from WUOT-FM.
There are two new epidemics sweeping across North America right now. One of them is a medical epidemic, a baffling new disease called acquired immune deficiency syndrome, better known as AIDS. And the other is an epidemic of fear.
Nobody want to come in their room and clean it. They ain't want to touch it.
I'm doing pretty good, and it's because of my faith. I strongly believe that.
I think I feel better now than I have in years.
Never in my wildest dreams that I will see myself becoming 50 years old.
Accepting for WUOT-FM in Knoxville, Tennessee is a director of news content, Matt Schaefer-Powell. Hey, man, congratulations. That's pretty awesome. Appreciate it. All right, take care. Mountaineers invited Oregon Public Broadcasting on an expedition to film the largest known glacier cave system in the lower 48 states, located on Mount Hood.
This is Dangerous Cave. There's just no room for error.
There's history, it's science, it's beauty, it's everything.
To find something in Oregon of this size and magnitude, I wouldn't expect that.
What Eddie Cartaya and his partner Brent McGregor discovered is a hole in the Sandy Glacier. It drops 150 feet through the ice. It's called a moulin, and it leads to over a mile of caves and passages inside the glacier. It's the kind of hazard that would scare most mountaineers to death.
In New York, we call those potholes. Accepting in the award for Oregon Public Broadcasting in Portland, Oregon is producer Ed Yon. KALW reporters trace the path of a 911 call in Oakland and consider how geography and demographics figure into a crisis that's been brewing for decades.
The paramedics say that, you know, they don't get a call based on anybody's color, which is true. They get a call based on a neighborhood, and they know certain neighborhoods are black neighborhoods or brown neighborhoods.
911 is a joke. The song is from Public Enemy's 1990 hit album, Fear of a Black Planet. It criticizes 911 responders for always being late to calls from black neighborhoods. In 2011, Leslie and Sharina founded the People's Community Medics. Their goal was to train their neighbors in basic first aid so that when there was an emergency, they could do something to keep people alive as they waited for help.
Accepting for KALW in San Francisco is reporter and producer Allison Budner. ESPN profiled a legally blind wrestler who carried his teammate and best friend, a double amputee, on his back to every match. With the unconditional support of a television producer, they created an unlikely family.
The wrestler who couldn't walk, carried by the one who couldn't see. But as much as the two were bound by their sport, they were drawn closer by their friendship.
Can't go into environments like this and earn the trust of two boys like this who have needs like this and then just walk away.
Lisa received over 700 emails from viewers offering to help, and in less than a month, nearly $50,000 was contributed to the Carry On Trust.
She's like another mother. Me and D'Artagnan were brothers. We're brothers. And she just created the family.
Accepting the award for ESPN is coordinating producer Jose Morales. At a state mental hospital in Queens, New York, State of the Reunion stumbled onto a mystery that would take almost 10 years to unravel. An artist stuck in the catch-22 of a lifetime.
The unit chief knocked on Issa's door. He said he was there to confiscate Issa's paintings. When Issa asked him why, he said,
"Well, the administration wants to look at it for traces of pathology."
Losing his paintings, that felt like losing that last part of himself. And he couldn't take it.
I got paranoid. I didn't trust anybody anymore. I couldn't trust him.
He was about as psychotic as you could get. Each time he went up for privileges, he kind of got knocked down.
Dr. Siegel says Issa could never make it to level 4 privileges. That's the crucial last step before release.
It's very difficult to prevail in those hearings if the hospital says the individual needs to stay. It can be difficult to convince a judge to let you go.
It's true. The hospital always wins.
Accepting for State of the Union is produced State of the Reunion is senior producer Laura Starchewski. Congratulations. This Newsy report focuses on Missouri, where gun cultures clash and existing laws have had tragic effects in the state's urban counties.
Mr. Speaker, our constitutions are the supreme laws of this land.
And while the national gun debate in early 2013 focused on potential new restrictions,
surely we can do better than this.
State lawmakers here in Missouri approved perhaps the boldest set of bills in the nation to keep guns available and legal almost anywhere. A bill allowing concealed carry of guns in schools by teachers. A bill to ban publicly identifying gun owners. And here's the big one. A bill that would not only make it a crime for federal agencies to enforce new gun restrictions in Missouri, but would actually nullify all federal gun laws. essentially telling Washington, D.C., your rules don't apply here. Missouri cities are feeling the sting of some of the nation's worst gun crime.
Accepting the award for Newsy is editorial lead Zach Toombs. The Seattle Globalist brings this special on young people and political change in the former Soviet Union.
We'll talk about power and dissent in Putin's Russia. We'll meet topless feminist protesters in Ukraine and visit a gay bar in repressive Kazakhstan. We'll also meet a Lady Gaga lookalike who works in a time capsule of Soviet propaganda. Before we go there, let's go to Moscow, where Putin's return to power for a third term was criticized by many who thought his election was rigged. As a result, a protest movement has emerged.
The first thing you need to know about a political protest in Moscow is that it starts the night before with lots and lots of vodka.
Accepting the award for the Seattle Globalist is managing director and executive producer John Barth. Come on there, John. Thank you very much. Time magazine brings us a story of Bobby Henline, the sole survivor of a roadside bombing in Iraq. Now a stand-up comedian, he has turned pain into humor and hope.
If I could share my story and help somebody else, I don't care if it's a room of 100 or 1,500, if one person out of that room changes their life for the better because of my story, oh my God, I gotta keep doing this. This is what I'm here for.
Bobby Henline.
You should see the other guy. It's reminded me that I'm here and that how important my mission is to continue on, to make people laugh, to let them know how precious life really is.
Accepting the award for Time magazine is Deputy Director of Photography and Visual Enterprise, Paul Moakley. Congratulations. Now it's time for our 5th Overall Excellence Award. In 2013, WCVB TV's teams traveled the country and the world to provide the best exclusive stories, investigations, editorials, and public service campaigns for their viewers and their digital users.
One of Boston's greatest traditions, rocked by terror. The marathon under attack.
We just want to ask you some questions about your job and the amount you've been paid.
Ed Bell runs upstairs, downstairs, and sprints into his office.
We finally have somebody guilty in the murder of my father.
Dangerous, notorious, once one of America's most wanted criminals, James Whitey Bulger found guilty of racketeering and 11 murders.
Republican Charlie Baker throws his hat in the ring for a second time for governor. Your thoughts?
After the storm, the problems remain. Cities struggling to clear side streets. Some still haven't even seen a plow.
Here's a special moment. It's going right on the finish line.
Look at all the
They're going to put it right in the heart of the finish line.
Wow.
Accepting the Overall Excellence Award for WCVB in Needham, Massachusetts is News Director Andrew Vries. Congratulations. First up. I think I walked up again.
Please welcome our next presenter, reporter, host, and E60 correspondent for ESPN, Jeremy Schaap.
Thank you very much. I'm just happy to be here representing all the toy departments out there. I'm sure expectations are low, and I plan to meet them. For excellence in newscasts, our first winner is WDEL. Reporters were on the scene to cover a wide variety of events, including a bomb scare at the county courthouse, the Delaware National Guard shipping overseas, and a threatened school closing by the state. Here are just a few highlights.
Here are Delaware's top stories for Wednesday, February 27th.
Miss Delaware Teen USA has handed over her crown after reports of her involvement in a sex tape surfaced. Families say goodbye to members of the Delaware Air National Guard as they deploy to Southwest Asia. Lisa Franklin of Dover brushed away tears. She and her children waved at the C-130 flying overhead, carrying her husband, Tech Sergeant Sean Franklin.
From C-130s to commercial airlines and how the sequester could affect air travel.
I'm Peter King. The planes will still fly, but a just-released report from the National Air Traffic Controllers Association says flyers can expect major delays.
Accepting the award for WDEL in Wilmington, Assistant News Director Amy Cherry. As a violent twister swept through Oklahoma, destroying neighborhoods, knocking out power, and taking lives, Fox 23 crews spread out over the hardest hit areas to bring viewers stories of heartache, survival, and recovery.
The National Weather Service now says an EF5 tornado hit Moore. Good evening. I'm Shay Rozzi.
And I'm Ron Terrell. Clay Loney is on the ground tonight in Moore. Fox 23 meteorologist warned of this storm a week before its devastating touchdown.
Oh, my God!
They escaped with their lives. Many neighbors lost their homes.
And my friend's house is gone.
Destroy everything.
We survived.
As crews search every inch of the path this tornado carved, they're not getting a break from the weather.
Accepting the award for KOKI in Tulsa, Oklahoma, News Director Suzanne Nadell. KCBS brings its audiences the hottest and most topical issues on the local scene from the San Francisco Bay Area and beyond.
News, traffic, weather, 24/7. All News 740 and FM 106.9. KCBS.
Gay marriage supporters cheer today's Supreme Court ruling on Prop 8.
Now we will be married and we will be equal to every other family in California.
But Prop 8 supporters say not so fast.
We'll continue to defend Proposition 8 unless and until there isn't a appellate court decision that strikes it down.
And big delays at SFO.
We've got one runway closed until midnight tonight.
It's 5:04 at KCBS.
Accepting for KCBS in San Francisco, Director of News and Programming, Ed Cavanero. WFAA's helicopter captured live pictures of a series of tornadoes tearing across multiple counties. The outbreak killed 6 people, ripped apart subdivisions. Staff at WFAA in Dallas provided captivating and compassionate coverage.
I just had a tornado hit my house, and I got no windows left, I ain't got no doors.
The power is still out. There is no water either. Take a look at just how powerful these tornadoes really were.
And outside on a warm, clear night,
Many without power in their damaged homes, some leaving hotels to pack the bleachers for this playoff game.
Our team pulls our town together, even when it's not adverse.
Just really, it's a nice thing to see.
Tonight, all eyes are on the field, the players, and looking toward the sky with excitement instead of apprehension.
Accepting for WFAA Executive News Director Carolyn Mungo. An entire suburban Boston neighborhood was locked down as police searched for the surviving suspect in the Boston Marathon bombings. CBS Radio's World News Roundup provided extensive coverage of the historic manhunt.
Shootout outside Boston.
One of the bombing suspects is dead.
Manhunt intensifies for second man.
Suspect number 2, the white-capped individual.
Area on lockdown.
All public transit services have been immediately suspended.
I'm Heather Bosch in Watertown, Massachusetts. The entire town is basically on lockdown.
In West Texas, 12 bodies have been recovered since Wednesday's horrific explosion at a fertilizer plant. More than 160 people were hurt.
My heart hurts for so many others.
Father Ed Karasek, the pastor at St. Mary's Catholic Church, said coming together will help.
Accepting for CBS Radio News, broadcast producer Paul Fari. CBS News distinguishes itself not only by finding exclusive content on a daily basis, but also by finding unique and interesting ways to tell the stories that everyone else also happens to be covering.
Tonight, pictures before an assassination. The DA was shopping for firearms just before he became the second prosecutor gunned down in Texas. Anna Werner breaks the story tonight. Connecticut's governor signs a tough gun law, and in a town hall meeting, we will talk to the grieving parents of Sandy Hook who pushed it through.
During the day, I just focus on what I need to do to honor him and make change.
A powerful force behind our favorite movies has died today. And when an American boy is hoisted to a papal blessing, he lifts the hearts of millions.
Accepting for CBS anchor and managing editor Scott Pelley. In this increasingly digital and online age, websites are a critical tool to connect with audiences and offer in-depth content. The winners for Best Websites are KBIA-FM in Columbia, Missouri, KJRH-TV in Tulsa, Minnesota Public Radio, WJXT-TV in Jacksonville, National Public Radio, Univision Network News, WFIU, WTIU in Bloomington, Indiana, the Texas Tribune, and the Detroit Free Press. I'm going to ask all of those accepting the awards to come up here for a group picture. Accepting for KBIA-FM, Content Director Austin Federa. Accepting for KJRH, Vice President, General Manager Donna Wilson. Accepting for Minnesota Public Radio, Director of Digital News John Gordon. Accepting for WJXT-TV, Managing Editor Steve Patrick. Accepting for NPR, Executive Director of News Ellen McDonnell. Accepting for Univision Network News is the Director of Digital Special Projects, Jose Fernando Lopez. Accepting for WFIU, WTIU is News Bureau Chief Sarah Whitmire. And accepting for the Detroit Free Press, managing editor Nancy Andrews, the Texas Tribune, could not be here with us this evening. Congratulations to you all.
Good evening. Tonight's 6th Overall Excellence Award goes to ABC News, which covered stories around the globe with distinction and passion in 2013. It was a year filled with breaking news, riveting interviews, and game-changing, even life-saving investigations.
After a lifetime of working in West Virginia coal mines, Steve Day's doctors found he had black lung from breathing in so much coal dust. And in 2005, he was awarded a $1,000 a month disability benefit under a federal program for coal miners with black lung. But Day's coal company appealed the case and then won after it hired a doctor at one of the country's most prestigious hospitals.
Several of these people haven't been able to see in up to 10 years, and they're going to be seeing again for the first time in a long time. I love that kind of delayed moment because the patch comes off and takes a couple seconds to register, and then people realize they can see.
And then the sounds of joy and a dance.
How does this ever get on?
You're going to live have a mammogram. You've never had that before.
I'm 40, I'm the age, and I have been putting it off.
The diagnosis that's still hard for me to say out loud. I have breast cancer.
Accepting the award is the president of ABC News, James Goldstone.
Thank you, Amy. On behalf of ABC News, a big thank you to the RTDNA Association for this tremendous honour. We've seen so much incredible work here tonight. We're truly humbled to be recognised for overall excellence in such a distinguished field tonight. Though we couldn't be here tonight, we share this award with Ben Sherwood, who's pushed us and inspired us and led us to even greater heights in recent years. He'd be the first to tell you that this award belongs to the mighty team of men and women at ABC News. Some of whom are here tonight. The most creative storytellers, the toughest investigators, the most passionate innovators. And I'm so proud of the work that each and every one of them has done to get us here. I'd like to salute Steve Jones and our powerhouse team at ABC News Radio for their award for overall excellence. Congratulations, guys. Congratulations. No one loved radio more than Edward Murrow himself, nor understood its power better, so this means a lot to us tonight. Now, 50 years ago, Murrow marvelled at the wondrous speed of communication, but he also feared that speed would multiply the distribution of information we know to be untrue. Our responsibility as journalists was unprecedented, he said. And now we live in a world of hundreds of channels, millions of sites, billions of posts, texts and tweets, and our responsibility is unprecedented once again. Technology has heightened our awareness of global events and given us unparalleled access. It's enabled us to immerse ourselves in stories in ways that even a few years ago were impossible. But our responsibility as journalists to provide our viewers with the information and context they need is greater than ever. There are great forces of change driving us forward, but we know it's never been more important to dig in, get the real story, and get it right. And if ensuring being right means not always being first, then we will always make that trade. Above all, we must always be our audience's guide and their trusted source. The Ebola crisis is a great example right now. With so much misinformation out there, I couldn't be prouder of the work of Dr. Rich Besser and his team, and the many other journalists who are bearing witness to the profound tragedy in Liberia and West Africa right now. We must discover new and innovative ways to deliver world-class reporting to our audience, but always we pledge to shine bright lights in the dark, forgotten corners here and around the world, and we'll never forget that it's a privilege to give our audience the whole picture one that will not only inform, but empower and inspire them to change the future. On behalf of everyone at ABC News, thank you for this honor, and congratulations to all the Murrow winners this evening. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Excellence in sports journalism is next. When the Atlanta Braves came to Pearl, Mississippi to play an exhibition game against some of their minor league stars, WMSI-FM was there to capture the excitement.
Your Atlanta Braves! For a lot of these fans coming out here, they probably have never seen a major league team live in person and may never ever see one again. So it's certainly, for a lot of people, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Saturday's game at Trustmark Park in Pearl, pitting the big leaguers against the Braves' top minor league players, was a chance for fans, young and old, to get some autographs.
Hey, who y'all hoping to get? Freddie and Jason.
That would be
Freddie Freeman
and
Jason Hayward.
Both are former Mississippi Braves players.
Accepting the award for WMSI-FM in Jackson, Mississippi is news director Randy Bell. Kevin Grayson has won championships at every level of competition, high school, college, and professionally, and he has carried a secret each step of the way. He happens to be gay. This story is from WTVR.
Why can't I be an athlete? Why can't I be a star player? Why can't I be, the guy making plays that helps my team win and still, on the flip side, be a gay male? It's that extra pressure that you can't even remotely show something that would lead someone to suspect you. So it makes it 10 times harder.
Some of that pressure was relieved when Grayson chose to confide in a few trusted teammates, some of whom he found out were also gay, and none of which shunned or turned their back on him. Now he is sharing his story with everyone, not only for the release for himself, but to hopefully inspire others hiding behind one too many masks.
Accepting for WTVR in Richmond, Virginia is sports director Lane Casadante. When William Greer ran the Boston Marathon, he faced the toughest challenges: unpredictable weather, unforgiving hills, and did I mention, he's also legally blind. This story is from KUT-FM.
Boston will be number 7, what he calls the granddaddy of marathons. It's one of the toughest in the country. Unpredictable weather, unforgiving hills. But for Greer, there's one more complication.
Yes, I'm legally blind.
Not totally blind, but mostly.
It will be the first time I've ever run any marathon as a guide to a blind runner.
That voice might be familiar to weekend public radio listeners.
Yeah, hi, I'm Peter Sagal, the host of Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me from NPR. My job, as William has described it to me over the phone, is to run slightly ahead of him, slightly to the left, and my job is to alert him to anything that might be in his way.
Accepting the award for KUT-FM in Austin, Texas is news editor Matt Largy. Cheerleading ranks second only to football in catastrophic injuries, including brain damage and paralysis. In this profound report, KCET examines the dangers of what many consider a perfectly safe activity.
Among catastrophic injuries like brain damage and paralysis, cheerleading is second only to football. 17-year-old Patty had been cheering less than 2 months. This photo was taken just before that evening's football game. Patty did a trick, and the other girls caught her. but the force from the catch stopped Patty's heart. Paramedics were eventually able to restart Patty's heart that night, but her brain had been deprived of oxygen for too long. Today, 5 years after the accident, she has to be fed through a feeding tube.
I'm gonna feed you now, okay?
She can't see or speak, although her mother often feels that Patty wants to say her mom's name.
Can you say Ma?
Accepting for KCET TV in Burbank, California is producer Angela Shelley. ESPN's E60 examines the issue of sexual assault in the military through the powerful stories of two once promising athletes and service members whose careers and lives were shattered and who fell victim to the system.
Ariana says the officer threatened to kill her, then dragged her to her room and raped her. She says the officer's friend then also raped her.
I just wanted to die.
A high school soccer star from suburban Dallas, Annie Kenzior was recruited by 30 different colleges. Annie enrolled at Annapolis in 2008. Soon she was starting for the women's soccer team. A month into her freshman year, she was invited to a party at an off-campus house maintained by Naval Academy athletes.
One of the guys coming up to me from the lacrosse team and saying, let's go into this bedroom and go to sleep. And in the middle of the night, I woke up to him on top of me.
Annie's father, Russ Kenzior.
If you're a rapist, go to the military. They'll protect you.
Accepting for ESPN, reporter, host, and E60 correspondent, Jeremy Schaap. The Carroll Academy Lady Jags have lost 213 straight high school basketball games, but they use sports as a way to win in life. The story's from ESPN.
When they talk about not wanting to go home, the drama, the abuse, the fighting, the drugs. Carroll Academy is a correctional facility that offers school. The whole purpose in the academy is to keep kids out of state's custody.
If, I could find something else to do with my time, something that made me happy, like playing basketball, then it wouldn't be as hard.
The girls have won 6 games in 14 years of playing.
The losses give us the tools that we need to teach, to build self-esteem and the courage.
Accepting the award for ESPN is feature producer Scott Harviz. In the 1963 NCAA semifinal game, an all-white college basketball team defied state segregation laws to play against a team with African-American starters. This story is from Yahoo.
The importance of the game. Mississippi sneaks out of town to play us. And that was a first for them.
All of the credit should be given to Mississippi State for having the guts to defy that court order and to come and play against us.
They went out and shook hands and met with the officials. When we shook hands, the place lit up. It seemed like everybody that was in that arena had a camera.
The Ramblers take the NCAA championship in the last few seconds of one of the fastest Action Jam finals in the sport's history.
Accepting for Yahoo is senior producer Alan Springer. For the Very Best in News series, we present these winners. The Northern Arizona Volunteer Medical Corps adopted an orphanage in Haiti, making a tremendous difference in the lives of those abandoned children. This story is from Arizona Public Radio.
The Orphanage Project has expanded NAVMC's volunteer base from strictly medical professionals to teachers, contractors, and even kids and grandkids of past volunteers.
You know, hundreds of people from Flagstaff have been here. The amount of people who show up and who are willing to give money and who care about Haiti, it's just tremendous. So I think Flagstaff has heart.
Jobin has heart too, for one little girl in particular at Foyer Redmond.
This is Val. Say hello, Jillian.
Accepting for KNAU in Flagstaff, Arizona is managing editor, executive producer Jillian Ferris. WVUE and partners exposed illegal activities, questionable practices, and little ethics enforcement in Louisiana's campaign finance practices. This story led to a change in state laws and an FBI grand jury investigation.
Each year, the state pays nursing homes for empty beds. Last year, 25% of the beds sat empty, 8,700 across Louisiana.
The demand is falling off, and yet the supply is being kept artificially alive.
In 2007, the state's Department of Health and Hospitals sent out a news release where the undersecretary was quoted saying the Medicaid reimbursement formula includes a payment for empty beds. But since then, the Jindal administration appears hesitant to admit to payments for empty beds.
Accepting the award is Enterprise editor Manuel Torres. This series is from WCPN-FM. Profiles the working poor, those people who have a job, or perhaps several, yet are barely scraping by.
I start at 6 a.m. and I punch out at 2:30 p.m. My second job, I have to be at metal fabrication from 3:30 to 7:30. Definitely worth it because my goal is one day to see my daughter and provide for her. My daughter now, she's 8. She'll be 9 in December. She was 3.5 when I went to prison. At times I do feel judged. When I leave work, get on the bus, I'm typically sweaty, dirty, fingernails might be black from ink. People grab their purse and they hold it tight when you walk by them. I really don't let those things really bother me because I know where I'm going and where I'm headed and how hard I'm going to try to get there.
Accepting for WCPN-FM in Cleveland, Ohio, is reporter-producer Brian Bull. In 2013, WFAA pulled the curtain back on the epidemic of domestic violence. What started with a heart-wrenching 911 call capturing the murder of a young woman led to a policy change and crusades to end abuse.
Cook's last 911 call came on August 17th, 2012.
911, this is Tanita. What's your emergency?
That call was answered at 10:55. In this final call, Cook never speaks directly to the operator, but over the next 9.5 minutes, she pleads with her attacker and begs for her life. Police finally arrived at Cook's home 51 minutes after she called. They knocked on the door, no one answered, and they left.
Accepting the award for WFAA in Dallas is senior reporter Rebecca Lopez. NPR's Morning Edition produced a series of reports on crime in Latin America, which is home to almost all of the world's most violent cities. This clip highlights a Venezuelan prison society run by the inmates.
Some of the wealthier inmates have private rooms with air conditioners and gray satellite dishes propped overhead.
A class of about a dozen men are doing exercises steadily, calisthenics.
And if this situation seems insane, Wilmer Lopez says it just reflects the world outside the gates. There are different layers of society, he says, and prison experts say he's right. The pran, or leader, is at the top. Below him are prisoners who serve as clergy, and the leader's lieutenants. Below them are police informants. At the bottom are prisoners with no friends or money, like the shirtless men in the courtyard waiting for the afternoon count.
Accepting for NPR is the host of Morning Edition, Steve Inskeep. 60 Minutes got unprecedented access to the Guantanamo Bay, Cuba facility, where the accused 9/11 terrorists will face trial, and witnessed firsthand the challenges of bringing these perpetrators to justice.
This is not a system that is set up to deliver justice.
David Nevin represents Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, KSM, known as the architect of 9/11. Considering that KSM has admitted to the worst terrorist attack on U.S. soil, you would think the case might be open and shut. But part of the problem is that he was waterboarded 183 times in 1 month.
If the government didn't want to reveal its secrets to them, it shouldn't have tortured them. And yet, this information
the
is
government said we
classified.
were trying to stop the next terrorist attack.
They're not all totally evil. Right? No, of course not. Good intentions pave the road to hell, though, right?
Accepting for CBS News is correspondent Leslie Stahl. News Press Media Group brings us this story of a couple's difficult quest to save their son, who has a rare, incurable disease.
He was about 18 months old. He was standing in the corner, staring at the wall. I was calling his name, thought to myself, what is he doing? And I just kept saying, Gavin, Gavin, Gavin. His mitochondrial disease currently is affecting his neurological system, which is where it first attacked. Then secondary, it started to attack his pulmonary system. His lungs don't specifically move on their own anymore.
Accepting for the News Press Media Group in Fort Myers, Florida, is staff writer Christella Guerra. Tortured and abused by her parents for 6 years, young Lauren Kavanaugh's story was a powerful study in pain and redemption. This is from the Dallas Morning News.
You just lay there and let them do whatever they are doing to you happen to you.
Lauren's biological mother and stepfather would keep her in a closet, torturing her, starving her, and sexually abusing her.
Every organ, every cell of that child's body was damaged by her treatment in some way or another.
Lauren has been broken in every way that a human can be broken, and has survived and thrived.
I try to never give up on anything, no matter what the situation.
Accepting for the Dallas Morning News is reporter Scott Farwell. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to our final presenter, ABC News Chief Investigative Correspondent, Brian Ross.
Thank you very much. I bring you the good news that we are in the 9th inning, and I am the closer. It's time for our 7th Overall Excellence Award. The vision of the Texas Tribune is to serve the journalism community with innovative discourse on policy, politics, government, and issues of statewide concern.
Donning pink running shoes, Senator Wendy Davis took the floor to begin an 11-hour journey to kill a bill that would impose some of the harshest abortion restrictions in the country.
You don't miss the water till the well runs dry, but honey, we missed it.
On June 4th, Barnhart officially ran out of water.
I don't care if you had sex with dogs, frogs, fish, flies. It does not matter.
Katherine Griffin knows the women seated before her cannot be free until they release their pasts. Prostitution charges topped their rap sheets. Many were child sex slaves, their captors' names branded on their necks.
The Texas Tribune could not be with us tonight, so I will accept this award on their behalf. A lot of good work going on in Texas. Our final awards category this evening is for the fast-paced and adrenaline-inducing breaking news. It was a scene of chaos, confusion, and courage at the Boston Marathon finish line. WATD's newsroom brought listeners accurate, timely, and constant information.
Anybody can walk up and down that street. You can't patrol 26 miles of the route. It's impossible to do.
Nobody's claimed responsibility for this. Do you see the signs of terrorism here, or do you think it was just some kind of nut?
Authorities investigating the deadly bombings at the Boston Marathon have recovered a piece of circuit board that they believe was part of one of the explosive devices, and also found the lid of a pressure cooker that apparently was catapulted onto the roof of a nearby building.
Well, the work to identify a bombing suspect from reams of Boston Marathon footage has yielded a possible breakthrough as investigators focus on a man seen dropping off a bag near the site of the second of 2 deadly explosions.
Accepting for WATD-FM in Marshfield, Massachusetts, is managing editor Christine James. As an EF4 tornado ripped through 46 miles of central Illinois, killing 2 people and injuring more than 125, WMBD crews were on the air, online, and on social media, providing critical, life-saving information.
And we're seeing it moving to the northeast at 65 miles per hour, you said, Cody?
That's right, 65 miles per hour.
That means it's speeding up. So if you're in Roanoke, that's hitting you right now. Hopefully you're already in your safe spot.
For those living through the chaos, they say it happened faster than they could imagine.
Accepting the award for WMBD TV in Peoria, Illinois, is Vice President and General Manager Rich Engberg. ABC News Radio was on the air within minutes of the Boston Marathon explosions with exclusive information, on-the-scene reporting, and emotional witness and victim accounts.
Aaron Katursky is in Watertown.
There have been a series of fast-moving and in some cases violent developments. The event started in Cambridge, Massachusetts on the campus of MIT, where one campus police officer was shot and killed.
This is a special report from ABC News. I'm Larry Jacobs. Police in Boston are now reporting that one of the suspects in the Boston Marathon bombing is dead, that a second suspect is at large and considered armed and dangerous.
Accepting for ABC News Radio is my colleague and good friend, correspondent Aaron Katursky. September 16th was the deadliest day in the nation's capital since 9/11. And first on the scene with wall-to-wall coverage, WJLA-TV committed all of their resources to covering the mass shooting at the Washington Navy Yard.
It's the first picture of the victim on the ground near the intersection of New Jersey Avenue and M Street.
That's a live picture of what appears to be a sharpshooter being lifted back up on into the helicopter.
This shooting is worse than we thought, Jumi. Just confirmed from my police sources at MPD that 10 people have been shot.
He aimed a gun at you? Well, there was a group of us, and he aimed a gun and fired our way. So you were there too? Yes, sir. Looking down the barrel of a gun?
The big concern for us right now is that we potentially have 2 other shooters that we have not located at this point.
Accepting for WJLA in Arlington, Virginia is General Manager Bill Lord. We will make sure that Bill gets this. He is a great journalist and a great leader. A young woman was saved by passerbys after falling into Browns River and being swept over falls. The story from Free Press Media.
When we got to the middle of the bridge, we looked down and there was a girl in there who was screaming to the top of her lungs, and she was in the water. I yelled at her, "You need to get on the rock. You need to get on the rock."
What are you doing?
It's either, go down the falls or that one spot, and pretty much just, pure adrenaline and go, just get right down in there and try to help her.
Accepting the award for Free Press Media in Burlington, Vermont is photo multimedia editor Ryan Mercer. From the chaos of the Boston Marathon bombings to the frantic search for suspects, NBC News led the national coverage with comprehensive and accurate reporting of this fast-paced story.
The eyes of the nation are once again on Watertown, Mass.
But that's a Boston PD SWAT vehicle.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. He said, Boston PD, it was a pleasure. Brian, these were the stern-faced police officers we've seen all day long as they went from house to house.
Quite a night. Accepting is Vice President of NBC News Specials, Bob Epstein. On September 16, 2013, gunfire at the Washington Navy Yard sent people running for their lives. WTOP reporters quickly got to the scene, relaying back as much information as they could get their hands on.
Well, here's what we can confirm at this point. Shots were fired at the Washington Navy Yard just a few blocks from Nats Park, as we've been reporting. D.C. police say at least 10 people have been shot, including a D.C. police officer. The White House says President Obama has been briefed on the situation, and we're also told now there is enhanced security at the Capitol building.
We are waiting for a briefing from the Navy Yard, from authorities there. We will bring that to you live as soon as that begins.
It was 3 gunshots straight in a row, pop, pop, pop. We have one shooter that we believed involved in this that is deceased.
Accepting for WTOP in Washington is Program Director Lori Cantillo. Explosions burst through the air, and the Boston Globe team reacted immediately, capturing the horror of the aftermaths, starting when the bombs first went off until the suspects were captured and killed.
Large explosions. We've had an attack here in the city of Boston.
Yeah, come on, you gotta go.
Maybe you can pray for those that are just hanging in there.
Powerful work. Accepting for the Boston Globe is senior sports producer for Boston.com, Stephen Silva. Our 8th overall Excellence Award goes to the Washington Post. With the launch of Post TV, the Washington Post took their strong, original storytelling to new audiences. From groundbreaking documentaries, series, and breaking news, Post TV delivered on all platforms.
Today, there are enough pages in the Code of Federal Regulations to fill 120 copies of War and Peace. Every year, the government pays out about $2 trillion for entitlement programs that haven't been reformed. It pays $193 million for a subsidy helping small airports, a subsidy that was supposed to end in 1988. However, in a sure sign of progress, the government shut down this website for folk singing forest rangers. That saved $125.
Get inside! Get inside, they're coming soon. Get inside!
Rocks began to pelt the house we were in. Okay, get down, everybody.
I was often asked, why is Georgetown hated by Syracuse fans? And my response was, because the Hoyas win.
And the Hoyas are going to win it! Hoyas win! Hoyas win!
Accepting for the re-energized and back at the table Washington Post, the Deputy Director of Video, Jonathan Forsythe.
We'd like to thank our special thanks to Diamond sponsors Gannett Broadcasting, ABC News, CBS News, Hearst Broadcasting, our gold sponsor CNN News Source, our silver sponsors NBC News, the EW Scripps Company, Tribune Broadcasting, Yahoo, ESPN, iNews Source, WVUE TV, and Raycom Media Inc., KOKI TV and the Cox Media Group, the Boston Globe, the Associated Press, Nexstar Broadcasting, and our reception sponsors, American Petroleum Institute and Investment Company Institute. We'd also like to thank our corporate members, Nexstar Broadcasting, Sinclair Broadcasting, Gannett Broadcasting. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening, and congratulations once again to all of our winners. I hope to see all of you in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday, March 11th for RTDNF's First Amendment dinner. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and good night.